What's going on out there? Thank you for tuning into the very first episode of Joey's HR Lounge. Now, you probably remember me from Business Life and Coffee, where I covered entrepreneur tips and interviewed really amazing guests. You also may remember me from While We Were Working, which was our show for HR professionals, just trying to navigate the busy life of a professional in the industry. But now I've decided to take a pivot as far as podcasting goes and bridge the gap between everyday HR professionals and the technology that we use. You'll see a lot of new and familiar faces throughout the journey of this podcast because there'll be members from the team, from our consulting team and our research team here at Jumpstart HR who lend their voices to the work that we do every day, as well as special guests that come on to the show to talk about the work that they're excited about and why we should be excited about it too. So in this seat, I like to just be the listener. I like to represent you, maybe ask the questions you wish you would ask if you were chatting with that person or that group and we all get to learn, grow, and be inspired together. Also, I should mention that Joey's HR Lounge is not just a podcast. It's also a community. And if you go to joeyshrlounge.com, you'll see not only a place to check out podcast episodes, but also join our community and take courses that will go towards certification, as well as helping you as a HR professional battle real life challenges. And so it's specifically for you. It's specifically for us. HR professionals in the HR community doing really good work and just trying to stay ahead of technology, innovation, and what our C-suite's asking us to tackle. So without further ado, we'll jump into this first episode. Brought a friendly and familiar face to our show for the very first episode. We'll have more surprises in future episodes. But Tami Nutt, our VP of Research and Insights, at our Aspect 43 research division. Tami, introduce yourself because you just launched something amazing and we want to talk about it. What's up, Tami?
Hey, thanks so much for having me here. Really excited about Joey's HR Lounge and excited to get to be on this episode and talk about one of my favorite topics, which is compliance.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely essential for every HR professional and every business. And the one of the reasons that it is so important to me is that before becoming an analyst, I was an HR professional for almost 20 years. And I know how challenging it can be to keep up with compliance and to make it work within the business. I also have a law degree in labor and employment law. And so I always say compliance is my love language. People laugh, which I think is interesting, but it's true. I think it's so important.
No, I love it. And I love that compliance is your love language. Definitely appreciate that perspective on our team because I think of all of the many great inventions and advances in our world that maybe we would have never thought of, but someone did because they were passionate about it. And similarly, you are our compliance guru, and the innovations and insights that will come from our research and the work that we do on our consulting side. It's truly something special. So let's get into this HR compliance technology category guide. It's a bit of a mouthful, but help set the stage. Why is HR compliance technology research important for today's HR professional?
Yeah, it's one of this particular guide is something that I've really been thinking about and working toward ever since I became an analyst. I was like, we need this. Uh, there's technology that can help with all of these things. They don't have to be held in your head or on post it notes or on I used to have like those paper protectors with all of my compliance checklists in them that I would go through all the time. That doesn't have to be the case anymore. And so really just wanted to look at what HR compliance technology is out there, what companies have been developing, where it's already at and where it's going. It just took a few years for the market to actually mature to the point of there being enough information and enough technologies out there to really bring it all together. And so, really have been kind of categorizing these things and thinking through it for several years, and it finally kind of all came together this year, and I'm really excited for this little, passion project to be out into the world now.
Yeah, it's a passion project, but it's also a timely game changer. I know from the work that you've done in the past at Aspect 43 and with Sarah, you all have been tracking compliance for quite some time in State of HR Tech reports and Inside at Work reports. And I'm just going to cheat a bit and look at our research to just talk about how important it is today. um, 68% of companies say compliance is now one of their top three priorities, up from 41% 2 years ago. And I'm sure that you have the data on 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but just to jump from 41 to 68%, that is a huge jump. And it lets me know that a lot of HR professionals are up at night because of compliance changes, and not knowing exactly how to adapt to our modern reality. So could you speak a little bit more about how you think the modern professional is facing these compliance challenges?
Yeah, it really it wasn't surprising to me because I saw how compliance was becoming more challenging, especially the post-pandemic. A few things happened. Number one, you have much more distributed workforces, and that automatically complicates compliance. And it used to just be an issue for big businesses, for enterprise level and enterprise size businesses, but you have very small teams that are now distributed workforces, and they still are required to maintain that compliance. And that's not just distributed within one state, it's distributed across the United States and even globally. So that move complicated the compliance landscape for businesses. The other thing that happened is that you had a lot more active state and local legislation coming through that put compliance pieces in place. And that activity moved compliance from something that was sort of a set it and forget it approach to an ever evolving piece of information and foundation that you have to look at. And really that's kind of the thing that I want to help businesses and especially HR to understand is that compliance is like the foundation of a building.
Mhm.
It's the pieces that hold everything in place that set everything up to be successful, and you may not see it every day, but everything depends on it. I remember my parents built a house a few years ago, and it took seemed like forever for the foundation to get laid. Like they would come through, they would dig for a long time, and then they would put down the rebar, and then they would, put down some other pieces, and then they would come through with concrete, and then they came back and did some other stuff with wiring and all sorts of different things. And you would go by and there were people working, but you never really saw a lot of progress being made above ground. It was all happening underneath. And that was the longest part. Once that was done, the rest of it came very, very quickly. And you could see all of the things. Well, we don't see their foundation on a day to day basis, but it's what made everything else be able to work. And it's what made the structure of the house stable, and that's really what compliance is like. And so it's one of those things that you want to get it done right, you want to get it done well, and it has become one of those things that that has changed dramatically over the last few years.
Mhm.
So we need to take a look at it and make sure that we're shoring up that foundation really well, and tech can help us to do that.
Tech can help us do that, and it's the people who need to know what tech can do, right? And the cool thing about our business and the way that we have research on one arm and consulting practice on another is that uh, our research is validated by what we see day to day in our consulting practice, and the consulting practice can help inspire the
Mhm.
research. And if I had to have a word cloud of all of the prospective clients that we've had on our consulting side of the business, one of the dominant words that we hear is some form of compliance or background check or state registration, something where if it's not the word compliance, it's somewhere in compliance's neighborhood. And I think we just overlook that because maybe we're not looking for it as a priority. But to your point, it is the foundation. And we have story after story of the major challenges that our team huddles around or tell story about are, yes, there are employee relations issues, but there are compliance issues to that too. To your point about, small businesses having compliance issues, uh, the COVID era allowed us to just pick up and move to Montana or pick up and move to Ohio. And many of the small businesses that we interact with, even now, that we bring on as customers, um, some of the management is like, "Oh, I didn't know we had to register as a business. How do we clean that up? I didn't know we had to register as an employer in this person's area. I didn't know we had to collect tax forms for these new jurisdictions. Uh, we had a major oops. Can you help us? This employee went to go file taxes in New York and didn't realize that we were paying taxes to New Jersey, right? So whether we like it or not, whether we think it's sexy or not, compliance is essential, and it shows up as a real challenge that can hinder our growth. But you mentioned some really cool things in the report, but I'd like to maybe stay at the high level and ask, how did it all come together? Could you talk me through your process of the meetings that you've had with vendors in the space, and then the structure of the report itself?
Yeah. So whenever I get ready to do a report, it never has a starting point, because I'm always thinking through and looking at what might be a topic that needs market education, or a topic of interest, or something that we are hearing from businesses, or seeing in other types of statistics or in the news that businesses need. And so there's never a real hard start point. It's more of a evolution. It comes around, and it finally at some point in time seems like we've got enough information, the market's in the right place, the resources are in the right place, and we're kind of ready to start formulating something to put onto paper that other people can see. I take notes all the time. So we've been this is always something that is always on my mind when I'm talking to businesses, when we're doing briefings, when we're talking with software providers or service providers. And so these things have been mulling around in my head for a long time. I've put a lot of it on paper over time. And so when we got ready to actually start the formal writing, it really starts when we have an end date. Because that's now I have a
When the pressure's
deadline. So I've
on.
yeah, so I've got to like actually start putting pieces in place that other people can see, rather than it just mulling around in my head and on some notes I have here, there, and everywhere. So we over the last several months, as we were at industry conferences and shows and having conversations with people, this has been on the radar. I've been asking some a little bit more in-depth questions around how what they are seeing with their prospects and what they're hearing. And so putting those pieces together, and then we sit down and I go, okay, here's why we're talking about this. Here are the pieces that have been put into place over time that have led this to be a topic of conversation and concern. One of those was that in our Insights at Work research, that jump from the 41% to the percentages up in the 60s, that's a really big jump. And so we knew it wasn't just something we were seeing or hearing, it's something that we had data on. And
Yep.
we could reinforce that, yes, this does validate it. And it's something that businesses are concerned about and need help with. And so, what we really try to do with these guides is talk about why this is important, why it's a topic of conversation. Why are we talking about it now? And then we look at how has that shifted? What led to this? Where has it been? Where is it going? And then we really look at what is the impact to businesses. We know that compliance isn't just an HR topic, it's a business impact topic. And we are seeing a lot of these things, like you said, employee relations. A lot of times there's an issue with the compliance component underneath that is causing those, or that is contributing to those, or that is causing those things to escalate beyond an effective resolution. And so, what are those impacts? And so I start researching and reading and pulling those statistics all together and seeing where all that's coming from. And then we kind of put out the call to software and service providers of, "Hey, we're working on this. We want to deep dive with you. We know that some of you have this in your toolbox, or this is what you do and you've been developing it. We want to hear what's new, what's on the roadmap, what's coming." And so we have love we're so blessed to have a great um, resource of vendors and connections of software providers who are willing to take us deep into their product, show us what it does, talk to us about what their conversations with their prospects and customers are, and share their research with us as well as part of and kind of shaping the story about the guide. And so then we start with defining how does all this work together. So with compliance technology, it's a newer category. And so part of the challenge that I had was how do we bucket all of this in a way that's going to make sense to people who are looking at it and who need to buy it. And so
And who do we want looking at the report? Who's it for?
it is for C-suite executives, so your CEOs, your CFOs, definitely your CHROs. We know that they are the ones, 70% of HR tech decisions are made by them at the end of the day. And they're not in it all day, every day. So it's really a primer for them to be able to take a look at this and go, okay, I'm going to be reviewing this. We're looking at making an investment. What do I need to know? What do I need to be looking at? It's absolutely for HR professionals to understand what is out there. Where should I be looking at this? What should I be aware of? And how do I frame this conversation when I go to my C suite or when I go to get budget for this? How do I frame that conversation in a way that connects this to the rest of the business? And we also know that others in the industry want to know what's happening, what's going on. And so it's available for them too. And so all of them, what I try to do is figure out, okay, if I didn't know anything about this and I now need to know something, what are the main things I need to know, and how do I and we as the Aspect 43 team, how do we shape this and present this in a way that is consumable and digestible and understandable? And so, played around with a bunch of different ways to do it and really kind of came up with um, a framework to be able to understand what is available, where do I look for it, and what might work well for our organization.
Cool. We'll jump into that framework in just a second, but I think it's a really good time to thank the sponsors who underwrote our research. Uh, these ideas don't come to life without partners who similarly appreciate, people-centered compliance. And so I'd like to thank, and not only will I list them, but I'll share a little bit about what they are and what they do for those who may be newly aware of these businesses. But we've got Experian Employer Services, and Experian Employer Services offers a full suite of HR, payroll, and tax solutions through a client first approach with unmatched expertise. We also want to thank our partners at iSolved. iSolved is the most trusted HCM technology leader, providing the best combination of software and services to meet the needs of today's people heroes, HR, payroll, and benefits professionals. We also want to thank our partners at Onwards HR. Onwards HR is an offboarding platform that automates and streamlines employee exits to ensure compassion, compliance, and consistency. And last but certainly not least, we want to thank Poster Elite. And Poster Elite simplifies labor law compliance by automating the most essential, time consuming process of labor law postings in the workplace. And you can learn more about these sponsors by downloading our guide, which we will have a link to in the show notes, as well as on our Aspect 43 website. But really and truly, this type of research and our ability to broadcast and share far and wide doesn't happen without partners like these four. So truly grateful for that. Tammy, you want to comment on the sponsors at all or anything you want
They
to
are
say?
all yeah, they're all wonderful solutions and partners to work with, and just they're always a joy, to be able to meet with and to learn about. They're all very compliance savvy and compliance forward thinking, which always makes me excited to get to talk to them because we can kinda geek out over it a little bit together. But also just really, really there and focused on providing support for businesses in all of these areas that help businesses focus on what they do best.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the framework or any other highlights that you would want to mention as we kind of round this out. So, what stood out to you as you reflect on all of the meetings, all of the research, the writing, the document design? What are some key market moving statistics that you would care to share for our audience of Joey's HR Lounge?
Yeah, I think some of the most important ones have to do with the business impact that comes from compliance. And I don't know that it's something that most businesses really think about. Most of the time when you're dealing with compliance, the impact is framed by employment lawyers who I adore. But the way that we do that traditionally is really around the cost of non-compliance. And so it's sort of this there's this fear that if I don't do compliance, we're going to have all these fines, which is a accurate and appropriate fear to
Very
have.
accurate, very true. We
Yes.
have seen in the paper many high profile lawsuits that lawsuits and judgments that could have been avoided if proper compliance was met. So it is kind of like the first table stake, but it's an important one, and we're seeing that play out in real time. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's coming from all directions. Some of it is coming from, federal regulations, global regulations. Some of it is coming from civil suits, not to mention, penalties, fines, all of those things are happening in our news on a weekly basis. The other thing, though, is that there's this, that I think is akin to that, which is that compliance is really brand protection. I think that we really are in an age where there's no hiding anything anymore. And so one person's negative experience or failure of one company to comply with what is expected of businesses really can impact a company's reputation. Um, but the opposite is also true. If you are compliant, if you do care, if you do ensure integrity, that is also really good for your company's reputation. And so I think that's also a really positive aspect of having compliance in a good place, is that it builds that reputation that can help you retain your employees as well as recruit for your employees. Nobody wants to work at a company that is in the headlines for negativity. And so the opposite of that is, if you're doing things well and word gets out that you're doing things well, that is incredibly helpful in your recruitment.
And
Also,
Tammy,
yeah,
just real quick, we earlier in the conversation we talked about how small businesses were afforded the opportunity in reality for employees to move across state lines. But as we've seen things play out, we're seeing individuals move across not only state lines but country lines as well, from SMB, mid market, and of course enterprise. So multinationals should be paying attention to this information and research, because ignorance is no excuse, right? Just because you have one or two employees in Paris, but you're headquartered in, Philadelphia, you still need to be aware of the rules of the road in those areas. And I promise you, they're very, very different than in the US. And so we just wanted to amplify some of the technologies that make that a little bit easier for you. But it's still, you have the burden of um, of being aware that you have compliance matters to pay attention to. So
absolutely. And some of the regulations require you to report on the certain aspects of the whole company, not just the two that are abroad. And so those are all really important things to be aware of, and several of them are regardless of size.
yeah.
So the other piece of another positive aspect of having compliance in a good place is that it improves trust and consistency, and there's a high ROI on fairness. And so um all of these things, having trust, employees having trust in the company, and being able to trust that the company is making fair and right decisions, we see all of that improving employee engagement numbers, and we know that where engagement goes, so goes productivity and profitability. And so there's really direct lines to very real hard business impacts that can happen around that. And the other thing about compliance that I think, that I really wanted to highlight is kind of back to that foundation idea. When you have that foundation right, all of a sudden it is so much easier to build the rest of the business well and quickly, and have it build go stronger and taller, and be higher. And so compliance really allows for market readiness. It prepares you to be able to scale quickly and well and appropriately because you have that foundation already there.
Yeah, I think about the companies that we work with on our consulting side. So the businesses that need HR services, and usually those initial conversations are something along the lines of, hey, we're entering a new line of business and we want to hire and we want to make sure that we're doing it by the book and we're okay. Or we're a multinational corporation and we are establishing a US presence and we want to make sure that we're doing it okay and we are giving employees the right rules of the road to follow, as well as informing ourselves of the right rules to follow. So anytime that companies are stepping into something new, one of those first stepping stones that they try to look at, dare I say, before marketing, maybe not before forecasting financials, because obviously financials are the lifeline of a business, but even maybe before marketing strategy, sales strategy, they're thinking about what are the labor implications of stepping into this new territory and how do we make sure that we abide by the rules. And so I can't stress enough how many conversations that I have with business leaders, and then stories that we hear from our team about the importance of this topic. And we can take it one step further to now say the tools that help those conversations go easier and the tools that free up professionals from having to spend more time on manual labor, focused on compliance, but allows them to free their mind and time to focus on other things that are important in the business. So super thrilled that we had this research and we were able to bring it to light this year. Also super thrilled that we were able to have a cameo in our research. Mr. Taylor Stockton from the U.S. Department of Labor, who is the Chief Innovation Officer. Not only did you spend some time with him in sharing the highlights of the report, but he just talked about the government's perspective on uh, AI innovation and just how important compliance is. And I want to share this quote, and we'll leave with this quote and maybe your thoughts around it. But in your conversation with him, um, he says that compliance can help accelerate AI innovation if it's approached in the right way. The right compliance and governance can be critical in developing trust such that all stakeholders see the opportunities that AI brings and can run even more effectively towards them together. I thought that quote was powerful because it literally means, you know, if AI innovation is a rocket ship, or if it's a bike, or if it's a car, compliance is the handlebars, the brakes, the turning signals, the thrusters. It helps control just how fast, but also how safe you arrive at the destination. So I thought that was a brilliant call out, and we look forward to hearing more from the Department of Labor about the brand new AI Workforce Hub. And we hope to be partners in that effort in some capacity. But Tammy, tell us a little bit about your conversation with the CIO over at the Department of Labor.
Yeah, it was really exciting to get to speak with him. The Department of Labor is doing a lot of more proactive approach than they have traditionally. And they are being very proactive around AI and AI governance and ensuring that the regulations as well as the resources around AI um, protect the workers and protect individuals, as well as enable businesses to be able to innovate and grow. And so that's a tricky balance that they are on the forefront of and really putting a lot of focus on it through Taylor and his area. And so they're excited about releasing the AI Workforce Hub that's coming soon. And it really is going to be a place where businesses can understand how you can use AI responsibly, what are the guidelines, as well as just good best practices around that. And being able to really enable businesses and HR professionals to be able to navigate this new area of technology that is going to be important and already is.
All right, awesome. Well, this has been a great start to Joey's HR Lounge, not only the podcast where we share tips to bridge the connection between the humans in HR and the technology that we use, but also the community that we're building full of HR's best and brightest voices, such as you, listener, and we'd love to have you join. So check it out at joeyshrlounge.com and see ways that you can engage with the work that we're doing for the good of the community. And also, again, I just want to reiterate our appreciation for our sponsors of our research. Those sponsors are iSolved, Experian Employer Services. We've got other amazing sponsors as well who, I'm going slow because I want you to write these down and check them out. We've got Experian Employer Services. You can check out their website at experian.com/employer-services. We've got iSolved. You can check them out at isolvedhcm.com. We've got Onwards HR, which you can check out at onwardshr.com, and Poster Elite, which you can check out at posterelite.com. And again, you can check us out at joeyshrlounge.com. You can find Tami on LinkedIn, the work and research that she's leading over at aspect43.com. And if you're interested in partnering or working with Jumpstart HR, you can visit us at jumpstart-hr.com. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to you joining us for the next episode of Joey's HR Lounge. See you later.